All right, guys. Appreciate everybody listening in again. I've got another great college baseball coach interview lined up today. This is Andy Drake, Senior Elite Program Coordinator with NCSA Baseball, and I've got Coach Chris Krepline here from University of Cincinnati. Coach, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for carving out some time. I know it's a busy time of year. You guys are off to a solid start. Big win this week on the road there at Auburn. But talk about kind of how the spring is taking shape here for you guys so far.
Yeah, pretty exciting. Getting a big time win and top 25 win. We got UAB this weekend, looking to continue to get this thing rolling. So we had a really good fall, I thought, going into the winter practice and everything. I think we're far more talented, more depth than what we had last year. So the pieces are starting to come together for a pretty good run. So we're excited definitely to get this thing rolling.
That's great. Pretty exciting time of year for sure at the beginning stages. So, Coach, before we get into some recruiting talk here, I'd love to just kind of get a little bit of your background, kind of lay the foundation here for kind of how you got to where you are here today. So, two-sport athlete in college, some coaching stops, a little bit of some professional ball as well, independent ball. So you've had quite a journey there to get there. So kind of talk about what you've learned along the way, from your college playing days, some of your coaching stops, some things you picked up along the way.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of came from the ground up. Small town kid. High school to small town college. I started at the Division III level as a player, and really just getting my opportunity to see as I grow as a professional and into baseball, all the different levels that you can experience. So I'm very proud to be a D3 player and got a good chance to do some things there. Went to the College World Series at Carthage College and getting to see that at firsthand as a head baseball coach at Lawrence University. I was there for 6 years. What that was like in the recruiting and small town schools, and then slowly making my way up. Getting a chance to be on this staff has been a blessing. I knew Coach Bischel, a couple guys on staff actually with Coach Winsky. I was under him as a pitching coach back at St. Norbert College, another Division III school. Got to play with Coach Bischel, got to play against Coach Schrader, who's on staff here. So really just a great opportunity to rekindle some of those relationships. And, what we're doing here and all along the way where Coach Bischel has been at, he's been a winner and getting to be a part of that and join the staff has been awesome. So.
Yeah, I'm a Michigan guy myself, so definitely got to see his work there at Northwood and then Central Michigan and then on to where he's at there. So definitely has had a great run. And it's great when you're able to like see how all the networking helps along the way too, right? I mean, baseball, it's a small world. We think it's big, but it's a pretty small world sometimes, right?
Sure, you go to the ABCA convention every year, and there's 8,000 coaches sitting in that convention center. But you walk around and 50 different people because of the stops you've had along the way as a player, as a coach, or so even somebody that you coached in the past or instructed in lessons, and now all of a sudden they're a coach at the high school level or making their way up, and it's just awesome to see.
And a lot of that plays into sort of the conversation today and the recruiting and families and sort of the connections they're able to make as well. So one stop that you had was in the Northwoods League, right, as well, and had some great success there, in that high level summer college ball. So that was probably a foot in the door as well to more connections and more people in the sort of the universe there for you. But how have you seen, like, from those days, like that was around 2023, and we've seen a lot of changes taking place now in the college recruiting and things that are happening. How have you guys adjusted around the realities of the transfer portal and NIL, conversations and all of these things that like 5 or 6 years ago we didn't even talk about? Like, how have you guys begun to adjust to some of that?
Sure, I think the transfer portal has been some really good things. It's helping some of the smaller schools start to fit their rosters a little bit more. In terms of the bigger schools, we're getting an opportunity because we're losing a couple kids to the draft every year, so it's getting us that opportunity late to add a couple key pieces or maybe someone that are a certain position that we're lacking some depth in. It's really helped us bring in the more polished player that's already seen the college level or has been at another school and knows what the college life is like and going to class and that sort of thing. So I think that's really helped. It's maybe hurt along the way in terms of high school, but I think the different programs that are out there are going to find a niche for themselves, whether that's really valuing the high school player and developing them all the way through. I think we're really big about the high school player because we have a certain style of play, we have a certain way about us and the way we do things that bringing in a high school player and having them come through our program all 4 years is pretty exciting to see. Carrington Cross was a very good example, Big 12 player of the year. He came in and look at his growth over from his freshman year all the way through his senior year and what he was capable of doing. We love to see that type of thing. We typically utilize that transfer portal, like I said, to fill some key gaps. If there's an area of need or an injury, or we lose someone to the draft last year. We had both Carrington and Landon Vitterick go in the draft. So, what do we need coming into this year that we might need to sign a little bit later? On the arm side of things, if guys are transferring in and out in different places. Okay, we might need an arm here or there just to make sure we have some depth going into the season. So it kind of depends on how you want to utilize it. But I think it's been definitely a good thing to make all the way down from Division 1 to Division 2, Division 3, even JUCO, like all the way down that caliber, those good baseball players are starting to make all levels even better. If I look at I was a Division 3 player or Division 3 coach again, being able to go dive into the transfer portal to maybe find a few key pieces that were bounce backs or kids that just didn't get a really good opportunity but are very high caliber, I could really build my roster. And I've noticed that too with some of those high caliber D3 teams that have made the postseason, and look at some of their roster and how many transfers are now happening in that sense. So I think the portal has made baseball all the way down, the trickle down effect, just that much more competitive and that much better.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I also think that it goes both ways, right? Some of those programs at those D2s, D3s, they will lose a few guys once in a while, right? Who kind of emerge and, do some really big things and then are looking to make some moves up as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. And, a lot of college programs use it in different ways. But like you said, finding that balance of like the high school guys, the transfer guys, that's always kind of the challenge. So have you, I mean, that's probably adjusting, year to year, but how have you guys kind of, sort of where do you think that good balance is for you guys, you think, as far as like that high school player transfer kind of balance?
Well, for us, I think we're really heavily on high school players,
Mm-hmm.
and again, we want to develop them all 4 years. And then I think diving into the portal when we have needs is kind of our niche. Maybe a couple guys that, and I was just going to say this too, for some of those kids that maybe are late bloomers and they go to a lower level, and they're really starting to develop and they're really starting to see some success. And now it's giving that portal is giving them an opportunity maybe to move up, to a higher level or a higher caliber of baseball. And I think we've done a really good job. I've only been here for 2 years, but I think we've done a really good job of keeping that balance, not going completely one way or the other. It's nice too because you think about the older guys in the locker room. If you have a really young team, bringing in a couple older guys that can maybe help, in terms of leadership and character and things like that, can help your team get a little bit further than maybe if you just had a young team and it's kind of a rebuilding type year with a lot of freshmen. And I think having that good mixture and good balance is definitely key to having a good season.
Absolutely. And also a lot of times, sometimes the higher ceiling guys are those younger guys, but there's a little more risk, right? That's
Sure.
where you're balancing the risk of, hey, we can get this proven guy. Maybe he's not going to be a first round pick, but we know he's going to contribute or do some things versus maybe the more risky the go. And so there's no right or wrong answer to it. But talk about like because of this, the roster limits and so forth, what's it take for these high school kids to really truly like get on your radar? Like there's probably not as many as you can bring in as maybe in years past. So, what's it take? What do these guys got to do? What kind of background, what kind of resume? Kind of give some insight into our families. We're like, all right, if you're a high school guy and you want to get recruited by a place like Cincinnati, you got to be doing these things.
Sure. I think we're now more than ever you're being a little bit more selective because with a smaller roster size, you really can't miss. So you have to be absolutely sure on every guy that you bring into your program. So, going into their background and their character and what they're like and what their families are like, and how they're going to deal with some adversity and failure, because even with the freshmen coming in, it's a new environment and they're going to see failure that first year. They're going from hitting in their 3 hole or they're their number one arm, and now they're coming into a program where they have to face a little bit of adversity, or there's some guys ahead of them, or there's some guys that are a little bit better than them and they have to develop. So how are they going to handle that kind of adversity, that first year? Because it could be sink or swim for some of them. And they have to kind of have that right mindset that, coming in, you're going to have to work and you're going to have to develop just like everybody else, and nothing is guaranteed. So I think the going further in depth with, who they are as a person and in their background, and in terms of like tools and things like that, we're looking for a lot of guys that, you know, they got some tools already, but they're not quite done yet. If we even the more polished, high school kid that's got 5 tools or whatever, how can we get them a little bit better when they come to us at the college level? So we're looking for, hey, they're not quite done developing, especially at our university, we're going to get some of those kids that might be three tools, four tools, but they have this potential to be a really, really great player within a year or two. Can we get them to that point? So, in terms of the tool aspect, we want to see, hey, is this a kid that we can develop and can mold into our style of play and in our program?
But they got to be pretty close to being ready to contribute, right? The
Correct.
days of kind of stacking guys, going to kind of at the bottom, red shirt, a handful of guys, we're kind of past those days. Unfortunately, for a lot of high school kids, those spots are kind of squeezed out a little bit now, right?
Yeah, with the smaller roster size and,
Mm-hmm.
honestly the demand to win now, and it's even more competitive, like I said. And so if you're pretty close, you're gonna have to come in and again, we have some freshmen right now. If you look at our last couple of series, we're starting two freshmen, three freshmen. They got to be pretty contribute. Enzo and Felice, who's hitting in our 3-4 hole at times, like that's a true freshman. He's ready to go. He smacks baseballs and he's a great human being, and he fits right into our mold and what we want to do. So, you got to be pretty close. If you're not, this is a huge suggestion I keep telling kids all the time. Like, if you're not close, go to a place where you're going to develop and you're going to have that opportunity to build that resume. Your experience is always better when you're on a field, right? If you're going to a place and you're going to sit 1-2 years, you, by time you might be ready, there might be already somebody coming in that's going to help your team win, and then you just don't know. There's a lot of different variables there. But if you can go to a place where you're going to play and you're going to develop and you're going to see, the field, now all of a sudden you're starting to gain that confidence and you're starting to build that resume. And the higher up you go, again, it's going to be even more challenging to get on the field. So find the level that works best for you, where you're going to get that opportunity, and then just continue to grow.
That's great advice, Coach. I definitely want to get some more from you throughout the chat here, but I'd love to get a little bit of some insight into kind of your guys' timeline. So, obviously, Big 12 program, kind of at the highest ranks of the college baseball hierarchy here. You guys are a little bit more accelerated than probably a lot of college baseball is. So just give us some insight into kind of when you start building your whiteboard up, when you start getting some names on there, when you obviously there's some rules August 1st, junior year to make the initial contacts, but how quickly are you like moving on guys and when do you get started with things?
Sure. So I would say kind of like our recruiting process in terms of like taking names and just here's some guys that we were following, box scores and things like that, kind of start that spring and summer before their junior year. Getting them to come to our camps is a huge deal for us because we want to see them in person. Like video is great, but it doesn't tell the whole tale at times. We want to watch them on the field. We want to watch them in the dugout, how they handle a strikeout, how they're handling, a couple walks in an inning, and how they bounce back from things like that, and getting to see who they are by actually sitting in the stands, or if they're coming to our showcases or our camps, it's them on campus getting to learn a little bit about what we do with some instruction, but they're getting a chance to meet us and getting a chance to talk to them. Are they personable? Are they introvert where they're not going to come out of their shell for a little while, and we got to get that out of them because if you look at our style of play, you listen to our dugout. I mean, I was kind of watching our broadcast the other day, and I mean, you're hearing us, you're constantly, screaming, hollering, having a good time, having fun. And so that's the kind of kid that we want, is someone who's going to be molded right into that. So, um, but I say that summer, going into their junior year, we're collecting some names and kind of seeing like, okay, here's some kids that have come through our showcases in the summer. So when it hits August 1st, we're now ready to really go see them or get them on our campus again and start moving forward. So we're kind of working that year ahead, maybe even a year and a half ahead if we can, just to try to stay ahead of the game. But we'll have a couple late ads, probably, going into their senior year that fall. There might be one or two ads that we still need to make. And then as we get through the spring of their senior year, we might be already on the next year where, all right, we got to see what gaps we need to fill with the high school player. And then, all right, we might lose this kid. Spring's looking really good right now. We're going to lose maybe two or three kids to the draft probably this summer. So how can we fill that void if we came up a little bit short, on that class coming in? So
Yeah, always some moving parts, and it does seem that things have gone a little bit later these days, even though there is some acceleration to maybe the early start with like the top guys on the list. things, it does seem like things have gone a little bit later. So because of the movement and so forth, have you guys had any, guys like beyond November, of senior year, or are you typically wrapped up by then, would you say?
For the incoming class, we're typically
Yeah.
wrapped up, pretty close to the
Hmm.
winter time because obviously we're focusing on practice now. We want to get ready for our season. We have signed a couple late, and we had a kid last year that came to a fall showcase, and it was his senior year, and he impressed us enough. He had come to a showcase and talking with our staff and seeing what he looked like in person. We're like, this is a kid we want to get back on campus for a visit. And that's probably the latest we would go. I think that was in like September, October. But typically by winter, because we're getting gung ho for season. We want to make sure we're ready to roll there. We're pretty wrapped up.
Yeah, for sure. So, you started to touch on the camp stuff a little bit. And I think part of like the camp is being able to see guys that are a little outside of the region, right? That's a huge way for guys that are further out. So, I mean, the Big 12 stretches from West Virginia to Utah, right? I mean, it's a huge conference. So I'm sure that your recruiting footprint has probably grown a little bit because of that as well. How do you guys recruit geographically? Where do you guys get to kind of typically? What's sort of the strategy, the plan around kind of getting out to see guys or having them come to you in some cases if that's needed?
Sure. So in terms of our showcases, again, they're nationally. We'll have kids travel from kind of all over the country. We do a really good job, I think, trying to be a homebody. We want the kids from this area to come to Cincinnati. Like if you're an Ohio kid, we want this to be the place to be. We don't want you going, SEC and going, further south or further west. We want you here. So I think we're really trying to do a really great job of keeping those hometown, those homegrown kids that are in this region and coming to us, and then finding kind of those outliers of kids that are from a little bit outside of our region that, want the opportunity, in the Big 12 and to play for a really high caliber team that maybe they're not getting that opportunity elsewhere, or in maybe the SEC. Now they're a great opportunity to come here. So we'll find a couple outliers there, but I think the being the hometown kids and the kids from this region is kind of our niche, and we really want to stress that.
It's great baseball in that region for sure. That Cincinnati area, and you're not far from the Tennessee region. It's not a far stretch for a lot of kids
Mhm.
to get to you guys too. So awesome. So let's go back to the camps a little bit. I know that you do a lot of outreach for camps as well, but talk about how you guys use the camps. How are those camps run? What should players expect if they come to your camp, and why are those such an important thing for you guys in recruiting?
Sure. So our showcases are ran by pretty much our entire staff. One of the big things that coming in here and being a D3 player myself, D3 coach is not every kid is coming to these showcases that are going to be here, right? It's there are lots of different caliber players that are going to come in. Some are ready, some are not. So one of the things that we really tried to do was bring in a wide range of other college coaches when the recruiting timeline allows it, but making sure that, hey, if you're not that caliber for us and you're, junior, senior, or, maybe we don't have a spot for you in that position, you're still being seen by 6 to 12 other different schools on our campus on one field. And maybe by the time you're done with the showcase and you leave, maybe there's two other schools that have already talked to you, getting kind of your contact information, and maybe you can reach out to them and that sort of thing. So we want to make sure that it's an overall great experience for you, that it's not just about us. Obviously, everyone wants to come to Cincy, but if it gives you the opportunity to be seen by another school, it's I want to actually do this summer when I have a little bit more time, but I want to take all of the kids that came to camp, and I want to dissect how many of those went on to play at another school. That school was in attendance at our showcase, and they were seen at our showcase. I bet you'd find quite a bit had come to one of our showcases, and maybe it wasn't for us, but hey, this other school saw you, was watching you throw on the mound, or saw you during our drill work and was like, hey, this is a kid that could help us. And now it gave you that opportunity because of a different showcase that you came to. So we invite other schools to come in and work. You'll see our foul lines filled with several different coaches walking around mingling. I make sure that those coaches are not just sitting back and just being a recorder. I want to make sure that they are out and about and talking with kids and getting to know kids. So when we even do our live stuff where pitchers are throwing to hitters, or maybe we're doing a machine scrimmage, those coaches are in the dugouts walking back and forth. And then halfway through, we try to switch them up to go to the other dugouts to get a chance to meet more kids and they get a chance to kind of talk and pick their brains about their schools as well. Obviously, there's drill work, there's a pro style workout. So we're trying to get all those metrics for kids lined up for them. We really make sure that when they leave, they get cards from us that have their metrics on it that are verified by us. So if they go and post that to their social media accounts or they go to send that to another coach, they saw that, hey, Cincinnati baseball confirmed this with our TrackMan, with our coaches that are doing metrics and things like that are really watching. They can confirm that with those other coaches they decide to send to. And then the other big piece is we want them to get to know a little bit about us. So pitchers are going through some of the drill work and programming that we typically do with our staff. Hitters are getting a chance to talk with our hitting coaches a little bit. There's a tour of our facility, so you're getting to walk around through our locker room, through our team room. Getting a chance to see our basketball arena and things like that to kind of showcase who we are and what we're about and basically the University of Cincinnati.
That's great. And it sounds like some great opportunities outside of just obviously a lot of kids are going to come to be seen by you guys, but it sounds like there's some great opportunity there. Now, do you advertise typically the other schools that will be there when you are sending it out, or is it just sort of coaches in the area will be here, or do you give the kids like a list of who
We
maybe
try we try to give a
yeah.
list as best we can. Typically we'll have it posted online, like these
Hmm.
schools will be here. Um, Sometimes we'll get some late ads or some late drops. Something came up, or hey, they had a practice this weekend, or whatnot. So that's a list that changes quite a bit. One of the things that I do though is when we introduce all of the players at the camp to the coaches, I make sure we go through so exactly what coaches are here. And that way, if after the camp you want to give a shout out on social media or you want to tag them or send something to them, who was here at that time if you didn't get a chance to talk to every one of the coaches.
That is a great add-on because not every single program has other coaches at their camp. That's not a there are some others that do it, but not a lot. Like so, a lot of times it is just the coaches for that program. So that's a great add-on, I think, for families to consider for sure.
Yeah, and I think again, like obviously showcases cost some money. So if you want the best opportunity to be seen by the school you're going to that's actually hosting the camp, that's great. But now, hey, if you also have the opportunity for 6 to 12 other schools that are going to be there, that hey, somebody else might get a chance to notice you, and everyone wants to go to the highest level possible. But if you're not quite there, maybe one of these other schools, and that's why we bring a wide range of schools, not just all D1s or all D2s or threes. We got some junior college, we have some D3, we have some D2. So that way, hey, you know what? I never thought about D2 as an option before or a mid-major before. I had my sights set on Cincinnati, but these are some really great options school-wise, and maybe it's a better opportunity for me to play and to develop right away to build a resume. It's kind of the best of everything. You're getting the best bang for your buck. You're spending the money, but you're also getting a wide range of schools to look at you.
Awesome. Great stuff. So, Coach, you've given some great advice already. I want to kind of come back to that a little bit, like just some advice for families in recruiting, things that, obviously being a head coach at the Division III level and experiencing, a lot of families and visits and communication that way. And now, at Cincinnati, different level, but same kind of conversations, right? So just some advice for families and your experience and, things they can do well, things that if they do these things, you're on the right track. Try to avoid doing these kind of things, or these are things that maybe were a red flag for me or for us if it comes up. Just kind of some advice for families in some of those areas.
I really think just overall being a great advocate for yourself. There's obviously different things you can do that outsource to really help you, but we get a lot of emails, so making sure that you're emailing positional coaches, you're following up with coaches, you're tagging us in different things because we're constantly scrolling social media. We might see something that pops up that's that's kind of interesting, and then if they've already reached out to us, we kind of continue the conversation there. But just really trying to be an advocate and never stop. Like, really just honing in on the school that you want to go to, but having an open mind to continue to reach out to as many as possible that fit within your skill set and also just academically fitting where you want to go, because obviously we know baseball is not a guarantee, like injuries happen or whatnot. You got the rest of your life to kind of look at beyond baseball. So, really just being an advocate for yourself and it's never too early. We can't talk to sophomore or, to August 1st of their junior year, but they're sending us some information, or, coming to some games and trying to outreach that way. I think that's a pretty good time to start doing it. I think the later you wait, the harder it's going to become just because everyone's trying to work a little bit ahead. So if you can start early and continue to work, and it's a never-ending process, like all the way up until the time that you step foot on campus, you got to be an advocate for yourself, and you got to keep promoting what you do and who you want to become. So.
Awesome, awesome. So, coach, anything that like experiences that you had with recruits or families where you were kind of like, oh, that kind of turned us off of that recruit? Like, what are just some thing, and it maybe not specific examples necessarily, but maybe some broad examples of like these are things that if a recruit did this or did that, or an interaction with a family went this way, it kind of could derail things a little bit. What are some examples there?
Well, I think the initial part, reaching out to us and things like that, emails that maybe have been done by Chat GPT, or just some initial contact stuff where you're just kind of like, okay, getting your name wrong in an email where it's not spelled correctly or it's the wrong university, and you can tell that it was not personalized, that sort of thing. It's kind of a red flag, like, okay, are you just sending this out to everybody, or are you actually really interested in the University of Cincinnati, or do you know anything about our coaching staff or our season and the success we've had the last 2 years? I think it's very big to be personable about that. um, I, I think getting on campus and seeing us and that sort of thing, like families that are kind of turned off, just don't really know what this is about. They have kind of the wrong values there, kids that are looking for the money issue, or kids that are looking for playing time, immediately, where it's like, we haven't even talked about that yet. Like, let's talk about how you might fit into a role here, early on versus later, as you become a sophomore, junior, that sort of thing. You got to have an open mind with some of this stuff. And I think when you're kind of closed and this is what we want type of thing, and it's not really what fits us, we're going to move on a little bit, because obviously we're a different style of play. We're a different caliber of a team. So, we really got to do a good job of being thorough in every kid that we talk to, because there's so many kids out there. And like I said, we got to be a lot more selective.
And listen to the coaches, right? You guys are probably, for the most part, pretty straightforward with families, and not trying to like read between the lines and say, well, he said this, but maybe it could mean this. Like, listen to what you have to say to them. If it's sounding like, hey, we got other guys that are, we got other third baseman. We don't need a third baseman. You're not going to try. You're not going to be the square fitting yourself into the round hole, right? Like, you got to listen to the coaches too.
Correct. And I think a lot of times too, they're looking at the school where we do have our position pretty much filled, and then you still end up trying to go in that direction, and it's just like you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, obviously, like, we're going to be very upfront about who we have, and even two-way players are becoming a big deal now. Like, if we can move guys around and that sort of thing, so we'll be honest with kids and tell them upright, like, hey, you might want to look somewhere else. But again, we get thousands of emails, throughout the course of the fall and the spring. And, if you can be personal about it, you can really tell us what you're looking for. We'll be honest with you with what we're looking for as well.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, this has been awesome, Coach. One last thing I want to leave you with. Don't want to put you on the spot too much here. I can give you a second to think if need be. But any like funny story from your playing days or coaching days, any stops, anything that just kind of sticks in your mind that's like, this is always a funny anecdote to share in my baseball career?
Um, I want to say, honestly, some of the things like relationships with players and stuff. There's always some fun things that you got to kind of laugh about, and coaches as well. Like, we do some pretty dumb stuff at times, and I think the overall joy of the relationships you build with the players. I've had a couple things throughout my career where you just kind of got to laugh at some freshman things as well, where they're still learning. But one thing that kind of comes to mind is this is back when I was at Lawrence. We had a freshman, and told him to get some radar readings during a game. Go behind, home plate. We want to get some radar readings of the pitcher, kind of see where he's at, that sort of thing. It's like the third inning and whatnot. And he didn't quite understand. And this is more probably a mistake on my fault, where I didn't explain it enough. I said, go get some radar readings of the pitcher, and he actually walked out onto the field behind the pitcher in the middle of the game during the warm-up pitches, and was radaring the pitches. And the umpire came over to me and was like, hey, Crep, what is he doing right now? And I was like, hey man, like, it's probably my fault. I didn't give him enough direction, but Well, I'll make sure he gets off the field. So he little radar reading behind the pitcher, right in the middle of the third inning. So,
That's awesome. Showcase style right in the middle of the game, huh?
yep, yep. I was wondering if the guy who was throwing didn't say anything to him either. Like, what are you doing out here? So I was like, are they gonna do like some pull downs or what are they doing? So just some fun things. Like you got to laugh at it. Like,
Oh
and
yeah.
we've all done some things like that too, myself included. But
Awesome, Coach. This has been great. I really, really appreciate the time this morning. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you guys. But love to definitely get you back on for another conversation if we could get you on anytime soon. So
awesome. Thanks for having me.
awesome, Coach. Have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you soon.
You too.